Welcome everyone. My name is Samantha Oakley. I'm with ALA's Public Programs Office. I'm pleased to introduce today's webinar, Big Programming Ideas for Small Budgets. Next slide, please. Before we start, I'd like to make a few quick announcements. Today's webinar is presented by ALA's Public Programs Office with support from ALA's Cultural Communities Fund. To learn more about the Cultural Communities Fund or make a contribution, visit ala.org/ccf. Hopefully, many of you are familiar with Programming Librarian, a website of ALA's Public Programs Office. We have a lot of program ideas and an online learning library full of free webinars just like this one. Next slide, please. A couple of notes about our virtual classroom. Only our presenters have microphone access, but you are welcome to type your questions or comments in the chat box. To send a chat message, move your cursor to the bottom of the Zoom window and click Chat. If you have any technical issues, please use the Q&A window to communicate with ALA staff. To send a message through the Q&A feature, move your cursor towards the bottom of the window and click Q&A. Please do not put technical questions in the chat window as they could be easily missed if that window is very busy. We will respond to your technical questions as quickly as possible. Note that this session will be recorded, so if you would like to review any information, you may do so via the archived version that we send out later today. Next slide, please. And now I'd like to introduce our presenter for this afternoon, Chelsea Price. Chelsea is the director of the Meservey Public Library in Meservey, Iowa. She presented at the 2018 Association for Rural and Small Libraries Conference, or ARSL, and her webinar, Big Programs, Little Budget, Forging Community Partnerships in a Small Town, was featured on Programming Librarian at the same year. Chelsea's book, 209 Big Programming Ideas for Small Budgets, was published in October of 2020 through ALA Editions and in partnership with ARSL. When not at the library, Chelsea loves pet sitting and volunteering at various animal shelters around the state. She especially loves senior dogs. Her and her husband have 4 seniors, special need rescue dogs of their own. And with that, I am pleased to turn things over to Chelsea.
Thank you, Sam. Is that your dog in the background squeaking?
Yes, I thought I hit all his squeaky toys. Apparently I failed.
Love that. I love getting to see people's pets and hear them and stuff. Hopefully, I apologize in advance if anybody hears my dogs barking in the background. They should be good, but we'll see. So thank you everybody for coming. I hope everybody is doing okay. The world is on fire, but I hope everybody is surviving, if not thriving. So as Sam said, I'm Chelsea Price, and I'm the library director in Meservey, Iowa. This is me and my dog Riley in my picture. I think everybody should have their pet in their professional headshot, to be honest. This is actually from a photo shoot I did. It was like a fake newborn photo shoot my husband and I did with our dog, which we're those kind of people apparently. But this is my book, 209 Big Programming Ideas for Small Budgets. It came out in October of 2020. I'm really excited about it. Isn't it pretty? I love the cover. I can't take credit for it though. But so in today's presentation, we are not going to be covering 209 ideas, but we'll get as far into it as we can. We'll get as many ideas stuffed in here as we can. I apologize if I talk kind of fast. I have a lot of information to get through, but you can feel free to email me after if you have any questions or anything. So a little bit about me. That picture I love. That's me. I'm like 4 in it, I think. And that was in my mom's library that she worked at when I was growing up. And I love the nostalgic vibes of this photo, but I do have to apologize for perpetuating the stereotype that librarians wear giant glasses and cardigans over their shoulders. That's not the stereotype anymore. But I love the picture. I've been the director in Meservey for 6 years in March. I can't believe it, 6 years. And I kind of stumbled into this job by accident. I have a degree in psychology. I don't have a library science degree. And I kind of just was in several jobs that I wasn't really passionate about. And Then I just happened to stumble into this job because I saw it was open, and I had a strong attachment to libraries because of the way I grew up. And so I jumped into it, and I didn't really have any formal training because the library had been without a director for quite a while when I got on board. But I found my footing pretty quickly, and I've come to feel very comfortable in this position. I just feel like this is what I want to do with my life. So libraries are in my blood. So even though I don't have a library science degree, my mom was also a tiny library director when I was growing up. And my grandma, her mom, was a school librarian from ages 40 all the way until she was 80. So I've grown up in and around libraries. It's a place I feel very comfortable. I worked with my mom, like shelving books and answering phones in high school. So it's genetic, I guess. As you know, if you are from a tiny library, you often have to have a side hustle. I'm only allowed 20 paid hours at work a week. So I am also a substitute teacher, and I have my own pet sitting business. And my husband and I volunteer frequently at different animal rescues around the Midwest. We are very into dogs. Right now we have 4 elderly dogs. They're our babies. And so I apologize because during this, you're going to hear me bringing up dogs quite often. We love them. So I'm wondering if how many libraries do we have in attendance today that serve a population of 1,000 or less? If just say yes in the chat if you are one of those libraries. So we have quite a few yeses. That's great. How about now, next question. Do we have any one-person libraries in attendance? One-person staff. We do. So I wanted to really quickly give those one-person libraries in particular a big round of applause because that must be so difficult. I have one library assistant, and I don't think I could function without her. So you one-person libraries, I give all the props to you guys. That's amazing. So you guys probably know that when you work in a tiny library, I'm going to close the chat now so I don't get distracted. When you work in a tiny library director, I say this in every presentation, you're not just the library director. You also do all the outreach. You're the teen and youth librarian. You are you do marketing, you do accounting, you do the IT, you clean the library lots of times, and sometimes you do the landscaping and the babysitting, honestly. We kind of have to do it all in a tiny library, and it can be kind of stressful, but it's one of the things that make our job so unique. There's not a lot of jobs like this. So a little bit about Meservey. So our population is around 250, and it's very rural, super into farming here, lots of cornfields. Our school closed in the early 80s. So the nearest school in the district now is around 25 miles away. It's not great to not have a school near us anymore. There's not a lot of young families in town anymore, nothing really bringing them there. The nearest grocery store or really source of entertainment, movie theater, anything like that is at least 15 minutes away. The only thing that's in town now, we have a bank. No, we don't even have a bank anymore. We have a post office, we have a fire station, we have a church, we have a bar, and we have my library. We don't have a bank, we don't have a community center of any kind, we don't have a gas station. So the library is the only free source of Wi-Fi in town. We're the only free meeting space in town. We're pretty much it. The only source of free entertainment in town. We have a 2-person staff. It's me and my library assistant. Again, so grateful for her. And obviously you can imagine we have a very small budget with very little wiggle room. Our budget right now is around $30,000 a year, and that includes staff pay and everything. So I have to kind of think outside the box when it comes to programming and trying to stretch my dollar, since we can't afford to really hire pricey performers or anything like that. I want to start off by saying that you are doing a great job and your community is very lucky to have you. I think whatever you're doing for your community right now is more than enough, more than can be expected right now, just because of everything that's going on. We're going through a global pandemic. The politics, I mean, everything's just a mess. Like, there's so much going on. It's like a collective trauma that we're all going through and trying to deal with. And personally, I give myself props when I get dressed and shower in the morning. So if you're doing more than that, good for you. Like, it's tough right now. So I think it's so important for us to be gentle with ourselves. And we don't need to be doing everything. We don't need to be doing everything every other library is doing. And we're all just kind of stumbling along. Nobody really knows what's going on. So I just want to give everybody big props for trucking along here. I do have to mention, I recently wrote a post for Programming Librarian called The Guilty Librarian, about all the guilt that I feel all the time, honestly, but especially now. And it seemed to have really resonated with a lot of you. And I just have to say, if you are one of the ones that have reached out or emailed me, I've received a lot of emails about this specific post. And I wanted to say thank you so much. Like, you have no idea how much those emails, like, I could look through them right now and just sob. Like, you guys are so kind and so sweet, and I'm grateful to feel a little less alone. So thank you for that. So we're going to start off talking a little bit about job burnout, just to get the stuff that's kind of a bummer out of the way first. And then we're going to get into some low-cost programming ideas, touch a little bit on marketing and fundraising and things like that. And then, yeah, so we'll start with burnout. So this is a topic I feel pretty passionately about. And I did a webinar on burnout, I think in April at the Kids First Iowa conference. So if you are interested in this topic and you want to hear more on this, I invite you to check out that recording. It's just on YouTube. So there's not a lot of jobs like ours. In tiny libraries, you have to wear all of the hats. As I said, you have to do everything. And sometimes the responsibilities are all on just one person's shoulders, which is a lot. And in big libraries, they have to wear different hats than we do in tiny libraries. They have to be a social worker sometimes. They have to be, sometimes a first responder or a counselor for people who are addicted or people who are homeless. They have to wear some different hats than we do. And it's not always easy, our jobs are unique in that we're not only expected to do it all, we're expected to do it all with a smile on our face, because we love serving our community. And it can be exhausting, and it can be isolating, particularly if you're not part of a library system. In Iowa, we're pretty geographically isolated, so it's easy to feel alone. And it's hard to feel passionate about serving your community when you're constantly running on empty. And so there are a lot of various symptoms of burnout. Irritability is a big one for me, lack of energy, if you're unsatisfied with your accomplishments. And there's a lot of other random physical symptoms as well. I do invite you, if you think that you might be experiencing burnout, to visit a medical professional first, because the symptoms of burnout can really mirror closely a lot of other things, including clinical depression. So you'll want to rule out those other things before you diagnose yourself. I'm not a doctor. And I also want to say there is no shame whatsoever in seeking help for your mental health. It's just like, if you have diabetes, you go to the doctor and you take care of that. If you feel like you have depression, you go to the doctor and take care of that too. I have had clinical depression since I was in college. And I've been in and out of therapy for like 10 years. And I'm open about it because I think it should be talked about more, and I think it should be normalized. And there's absolutely no shame at all in in seeking help. And self-care is great, but all the self-care in the world doesn't replace mental health care. So I did want to say that. There are some contributing factors, job expectations, as I talked about before, a lack of support if you have a lot of demands at home, and an inability to say no. This is a big one for me. I find it absolutely impossible to say no to anyone when it comes to my job. I'm a people pleaser and kind of a doormat sometimes. And it's also hard sometimes in our field to justify saying no when the existence of libraries is sometimes called into question by the powers that be. So why should I be saying no when I'm just fighting for my job? And you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but I think you get what I mean. But the good news is there are a lot of tips and strategies for avoiding burnout. Some of my favorites that I've used that have helped me, finding your people. I have made some really awesome connections through the Programming Librarian Facebook group. The Rural and Small Library Listserv is really wonderful. Just having someone to lean on and having those support systems, people to commiserate with and bounce ideas off of. I've also found that Bookstagram, which I didn't even know was a thing at one point, Bookstagram has been a really great resource for me as well. I also, when COVID is over, if it's over, I would love to get all the small libraries in my area together to meet once a quarter, have food together, talk about our ideas and our complaints. And I just think you have to find your people and definitely set boundaries. This is something I struggle with, and I think a lot of you might as well. It's hard to not take work home with you, especially when you're in a community as small as this one, where I mean, you know everybody and everybody knows you and relates you to the library. And so it's important to set those boundaries and set a time where you're going to stop checking your emails. We're not neurosurgeons. Nobody will die if we don't check our email. You know what I mean? So I think it's so important to take breaks, take our vacations if you're lucky enough to get them, set those boundaries when you're at home, and for the sake of your mental health. And my favorite, give yourself permission to do less. This is something I struggle with. We don't have to do a craft and have a snack at every single children's program. We don't have to visit every classroom to promote summer reading. Just visit one. You don't have to have an after-school program every day after school. Have it once a week. I just think it's important to, again, be gentle with ourselves and cut ourselves some slack. We can't do it all, and we shouldn't be expected to. And then another tip that I love is to keep a happy folder. I call it my happy folder. And this can be like on your computer or an actual physical folder. But basically, I just keep all of my emails that have made me smile, made me feel better. I keep funny things that my young patrons have said to me, or little cards that they've given me. I also, I keep positive feedback I've gotten about specific programs. And when I'm feeling on the verge of burnout, I just go and I look in the folder, and it helps me remember why I'm doing this, why I care about this job, and that people really are appreciative of me and the work I do, even though sometimes it might seem like it. So that's something that's really helped me. The biggest thing that's probably gotten me out of my funks are finding these bursts of inspiration. So I have a whole bunch of blogs bookmarked on my laptop that I go to when I don't feel like planning programs. I just don't feel like doing it. And it helps me relight my programming fire. And just finding that burst of excitement about a really cool new idea can often be enough to help me snap out of it. So here are some of the resources that I love for finding cool new stuff. So BuzzFeed is how I keep up with the youths. I'm sorry, I keep doing the air quotes. I'll try to control my hands. That's how I keep up with the youths and how I know what's cool and how I know what celebrities they're talking about. On BuzzFeed, they also have a lot of neat They have some cooking videos, some cooking with kids videos, some crafts. And then Disney Family is also a really great resource for children's programming. They have cooking, they have crafts, they have party ideas, a lot of printables, cool stuff. Kara's Party Ideas is not, I mean, none of those are related to libraries, but Kara's Party Ideas I go to, especially for summer reading, because all you have to do is type in. So our theme this summer is going to be Color Your World, I believe. So if you just type in rainbow or color, it'll come up with a whole long list of parties that this woman has planned or photographed or written about that involve colors, painting, rainbows, and there's craft ideas on there, snack ideas. I just really love getting inspiration. Teen Services Underground, obviously things pertaining to teens in the library world. ALSC blog, children's services, news pertaining to children's services, program ideas. And then I love going to like the archive webinars on Web Junction, Info People, and Florida Library webinars. Those are probably my top 3. And even if you just look through the slides, a lot of times you can get some really good ideas there. And then your own hobbies or interests. A lot of the best programs I think I've ever done at my library have come because I'm passionate about a specific topic. And so I figure, well, if I'm obsessed with this, other people probably will be too. So I do think it's important to kind of incorporate your own hobbies and your own passions into your programming, because when people can sense that you're excited about something, they'll probably get excited about it as well. So now we are going to talk about programming. So I know it's hard to think about programming right now because a lot of us aren't open to the public or planning on doing in-person programming for quite some time. I know I'm not. It's hard to even think about, to be honest with you, but a lot of the passive programs can be done while you're closed to the public, whether you set up displays in your windows or you do things on social media. So that's part of the beauty of passive programming. I love it because it's super cheap most of the time, and it doesn't require a lot of time and effort or, you can just, sometimes it's as little as a whiteboard and a marker, you know what I mean? So when we're open, some of my favorites to do are scavenger hunts, hiding something small in the children's area, and then whoever finds it gets a little prize. Whiteboard polls, I love whiteboard polls. And when we're closed, you can still do whiteboard polls. I did the air quotes again on your social media pages. I love these because it allows you to get feedback from your community and have interactions that you may not have had otherwise. You could also display your patron collections in your window. I don't know if other libraries do this, but for example, at my library, we have a patron who collects geodes and big crystals and cool rocks and stuff. So right now we have his set up in our building on display, and it always gets a lot of comments when the building is open. So stuff like that you could set up in the windows for people to look at as they walk by. The I Spy windows are very popular. I know a library in Iowa recently did this and it was super popular. Just putting a little rhyme of things to find in the window and then having a display of all this stuff that kids can look for. You can also, an idea we're working on right now, although we're going to have to incorporate patrons and board members because we're only a 2-person library. On social media, guess which staff member. So you'll have your followers guess which staff member likes this movie or which staff member loves dogs. Everybody would guess that was me. Stuff like that, little contests. And the nice thing is that it can count in your programming numbers, and it's a really pretty low effort. So I love passive programming, and I feel like it gets ignored too often. Low cost program ideas. So every library, no matter what size they are, no matter how big their budget is, I would be willing to guess that all of you love saving money when it comes to programming. So some of the ones that have worked out for us recently are slime programs. Almost every age group loves slime. And it's really cheap and involves a lot of ingredients that you probably already have laying around your house. I love this picture. That little girl looks, the look on her face is so funny. So this was for a summer reading program where we did messy art. So we did squirt gun paintings with watered down paint and squirt guns that they shot at paper, and then slime. And we did it outside, thank God, because all I had to do was hose down the sidewalks after. And the kids honestly just saw the ingredients for slime laying out and they all just swarmed to it. And they immediately knew what to do. I didn't even have to tell them. They know how to make it. And usually it uses stuff like contact solution, cornstarch, shaving cream, and of course a ton of glue. So pretty cheap stuff, and kids always seem to love it. We also did for a summer reading program. So this day we did the dino dig. We made salt dough fossils using shells that I found in our storage closet, and we painted rocks. But their favorite by far was digging in sand, which in retrospect, I definitely should have put this outside. I don't know why I would think to put a baby pool full of sand inside my library. That was not a great idea, but I did. And so, yeah, it's just a baby pool that we already had full of sand I got from like a nearby park. And then I buried some like leftover plastic Easter eggs in there. You could also use egg shakers if you don't mind getting them dirty. And then plastic dinosaur toys from like a dollar store. And then I gave each kid a toothbrush and a little paintbrush to brush them off like real archaeologists. And they loved it. They loved digging around in that sand. And it was super easy and super cheap. Relay races have always been a big hit with kids at my library, or minute to win it games. So this photo is kind of hard to make out, but all it is they were hitting a balloon with a pool noodle across the building as fast as they could to try to beat the other team, which sounds really simple, but they were obsessed with it. And we also did that day which team could make the longest paper chain in a minute, and which team, let's see, we did the holding hands hula hoop thing, where you hold hands in a line and then maneuver yourself, which holding hands, whoa, what is that? Can't do that now, but it was sure fun then. And all the kids, they just loved it and they were going nuts. And minute to win it games, if you Google them, there are so many. Just basically each team has to complete a certain task within 60 seconds. And there's a ton of ideas out there. We also used some more minute to win it games at our Valentine's Day party. This was just last February, before everything kind of went crazy. But all of this decor was from the dollar spot at Target, so that was really cheap. The toppings for ice cream sundaes were donated by my board members. They each donated some toppings. And then the ice cream was from a local grocery store. They gave us a discount, which was great. And again, would not do this post-COVID, but it worked out great then. And they just built their own sundaes. And then we played a lot of minute to win it games involving candy hearts. How many candy hearts can you stack on your forehead? How many candy hearts can you transfer to another plate with chopsticks? And it was so loud. The kids were all screaming and going nuts, and they loved it so much. And that was really cheap. So some adult programs I've done that have been really successful for not a lot of money. The Office themed trivia night. So The Office is my favorite TV show, which I realize now is a really basic thing to say. But it is my favorite show. And so I was really excited about this program, and it went really, really well. I spent about $100 for prizes and for food. We got, if you watch The Office, you'll know there's a character, Stanley, who loves pretzel day. So we got a bunch of soft baked pretzels from a local bakery, and they gave me, I think, half off. So that saved me some money. And then basically I just made a PowerPoint slideshow of all the questions, and then each team had a little whiteboard that they wrote their answers on, so there was no yelling or anything. People came in costume. It was awesome. And the event was free, but I did put a donation jar on the front desk, like just in case. And the donation jar at the end of the night had $120 in it. So that was more than enough to pay for the trivia night. So I was really happy with that. And by the way, I am happy to share that PowerPoint if you also like The Office and would like to do the trivia night. Just email me, I'll send it to you. And then the Stranger Things themed escape room was more for teens and adults. And I was very surprised at how cheap this was. So, well, I shouldn't say that because we did buy the Breakout EDU kit for $150, but we kind of justified that by thinking, well, we'll use it for other escape rooms. We'll let other libraries use it. Maybe the school would use it. So we did buy that, but you don't have to. You can buy all kinds of locks and a UV flashlight and pens on Amazon. But we did buy that. But other than that, the only thing we spent money on was these black tablecloths from the Dollar Tree. So those were super cheap. We taped them up all along the room to make it dark. We hung posters. We wanted to make it look like an 80s basement. And so what you can't see in this picture, there was also a ping pong table set up. There was a game table in the corner with like a Dungeons and Dragons type game set out on it. A lot of 80s like memorabilia, and it was really cool. And that stuff, either my parents had some, I had stuff at home to decorate, or I borrowed from people in the community. So again, the only thing I really spent money on was the tablecloths to line the room. And it was so much fun. They loved it. And we watched them. We got to watch them through little baby monitors to see what clue they were on. And we used walkie-talkies that we borrowed to give them hints if they needed hints. And it was so much fun. And if you want to read more about either of these programs, I wrote a post on Programming Librarian about each one. So if you want more details, you can definitely look at those. So another way to save money on programming is by using recyclable materials. So I found that a lot of giant board games are really easy to do using recycled materials. So this one's just Jenga with pop can 12 packs wrapped in brown paper, and the kids loved it. And you can also do the same kind of thing with paper wrap boxes for Lego and Minecraft programs. You could make a giant cardboard dice and play Candyland with like colorful paper squares on the floor. You can make a giant memory or a giant Scrabble with giant construction paper pieces. And kids love, for some reason, kids love when something is either really tiny, like miniature stuff, and they love when something is huge and life-sized and giant. I don't know why that is, but they do. And then another one that's been popular is the drive-in movie or drive-in story time, where kids decorate their boxes to look like cars. They can use paint, paper plates for the wheels and for the tires and for the wheel. And it looks so cute in social media posts and stuff. And just obviously make sure if you show an actual movie, you have the movie license, whatever, that you can show that. Y'all knew that already. Free programming ideas that have either worked well for me or that I'm excited to do. Let's see. So the trunk or treat is something we did just this year. It was all outside, obviously. We all wore masks and we did a trunk or treat. My board donated, I think, 2 bags of candy each, so we didn't have to spend any money on that. And then these were all decorations that I had either at home or at the library. And we decorated the inside of my little orange Prius and set the candy up that kids could come and we would put them in their bags. And it was so cute, and it made for some really cute photos. And then we also had a little photo set up where my library assistant brought her camera and took pictures of each kid posing, and then sent the photos home to the parents. So that was really fun, and it was free. We also put together packets of like coloring sheets and activities. So I guess the cost of paper and printer ink, but yeah. This middle photo is an idea I have not done yet, but I'm excited to do speed dating at the library. And I don't mean speed dating to find a potential mate, although if you'd like, I'm sure you could probably do that at the library as well. This is speed dating to find your next favorite book. So each person comes with a list of like their 3 favorite books, something they're reading now, and they share. You go through and share why you liked the book, why you think other people would like the book. And you could also make it, once COVID's over, you could make it a potluck thing where everybody shares food, and everybody goes home with a new long list of new books to read. And this kind of thing you could do with a lot of things. You could do like a local history night where people share old photos from town. You could do a recipe swap, a craft supply swap, a storytelling night. You could do it with a lot of things, and it's free unless you decide to bring or provide food. Another one I've talked about in previous presentations I've done that's free is a Wrap and Yap party. This came about because I was bored wrapping gifts in front of my TV at home. And so we all kind of got together and wrapped presents together. Everybody brought wrapping paper and ribbon and tags to share. And then we all just brought our gifts and wrapped them together at the library and listened to music and talked. And it was fun. And again, that you could make cost money if you chose to provide food, but it doesn't have to. And then this one really I included because it's just one of my favorite flyers ever. I love the 80s aerobics vibe. But exercise programs are almost always free unless you provide like bottles of water. YouTube has so many like beginner exercise videos you could do. And it's easy and people like them. Let's see. So obviously we're relying more on virtual programs right now because we can't do in-person stuff. And, not every virtual program has to be like an active program, like a Zoom story time or live trivia. Not everything you do has to be active. You can do passive programs virtually, like we talked about before. Contests, you could do a photography contest or an art contest where patrons submit photos and you have your Facebook followers vote on whose they like the best. You could do Lego challenges online. You could do a book face contest, which I'm not good at describing it, but it's when there's like a person on the cover of the book and then you match it up with your face to make it look cool. You could do a contest of that. You could do, we like at our library doing guess how many pieces of candy in the jar or whatever. You could do those online. We've also shredded popular book pages of weeded copies, of course. And then we will like put them in some kind of container and patrons guess based on the few words they can pick out. Patrons guess which book it's from. They can win a little prize or just get bragging rights, and then you can also obviously do polls. We talked about similar to whiteboard polls, just online. You could do March Madness brackets. Recently, a library in Iowa did that kind of bracket, but it was like for holiday cookies. So like they were like, oh, snowballs versus sprinkle cookies, which one will win, stuff like that. And their followers seem to really like it. So you could do that with a lot of stuff. There is a library I follow in Iowa doing so much stuff. Honestly, they make me feel bad about myself, but they're doing so much stuff and I feel like I need to do it all. So they do a lot of live game nights, Boggle, word searches, card games, Bunko, but then they also do trivia and they do cooking for kids tutorials. They do canvas painting parties. They do virtual escape rooms. And it's been so popular. And crafting and DIY videos are something you could do that are relatively easy. Record yourself making slime, record yourself. If there's somebody in town that's really good at arranging flowers, see if you can record them or they can record themselves doing their flower arranging and then post it for people to see. here's where I'm going to bring up Dawn from Illinois. She has done some really, really amazing stuff during COVID. I invite you to check out her blog. I did share the link with Samantha, so I think she has that. She does like an art club where she sends art supplies home with her teens and then does these art classes online. She has done like little terrariums for her teens to take and make. She has done, oh my gosh, she's doing bubble tea. Like seriously, go to her blog or her Instagram. She's doing so much cool stuff for teens. It's amazing. I also saw that a library in New Jersey did a special effects makeup artist tutorial. And the makeup artist did like the Joker iconic look, and they really seemed to love it. It was really neat to see. And then video book talks always work well. Talk a little bit about the books you just got in. Unboxings are a thing. Watch people open your new Amazon box or whatever. Let them watch you and take out each book. Especially kids like unboxing videos. I don't really get it, but I guess it's a thing. And Reader's Advisory Lightning Round. So this is just when people leave comments on your social media telling you what book they're reading or what book they love, and then you get right back to them with a recommendation of another book that they could read. If you aren't right on the ball with recommendations, you can go to bookbrowse.com is one I've used. Also, whatshouldireadnext.com. And it's not, they don't have every book in existence in their system, but for the most part, you can type up the bigger titles and they'll give you a couple of read-alikes that you can recommend to your patrons. So those are just a few ideas that I love for virtual programs. Partnerships. Okay, I'm going to have to move along a little faster here. So we wouldn't be able to do a lot of the programs we do without community partnerships. How I get started generally, oh no, y'all just saw I was wearing pajama pants. Pretend you didn't see it. How to get started, I like to pretend that I'm a tourist in my own community, and I'll go around and see what businesses, organizations, etc. are in my community. I try to form relationships with the people in the community without immediately asking for something. Small local businesses, I find, have been a great place to start. A local florist has done a lot of things for us. A gym might want to help you do workout classes. We've had a local gas stations donate pizza for a pizza party. We've had a lot of success with a local bank. So that's been really great for us. People, this is also one of my favorites. I like to go down my Facebook friends list and just make a list of people and the skills they have, the talents they have, the passions and interests they have, and then see, would that make a great program? And 9 times out of 10, it would make an excellent program. And the top photo is actually a Facebook friend who teaches women's self-defense. And she came and did a class for us for free. That was really fun. We also had a Christmas tree farm owner reach out, and apparently he had a passion for geodes. I don't know, apparently people in our community are super into geodes, but he brought a bunch of geodes for kids to break open with hammers. They had goggles and stuff, but they broke them open with hammers and then like glued them to a piece of wood and made art. It was really cool. What I'm trying to say is almost everybody has something that they're interested in that would make a really great program. You just have to ask. Hometown heroes, your favorite teacher, the star basketball player, the fire chief, those would all, local celebrities make for really great programs, and kids are always excited to see, especially their favorite teacher or their principal outside of school. Mutually beneficial partnerships are often great because it's like you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours. So these are things like new businesses that are in need of new customers, things like nonprofits that are looking for volunteers or potential donors. We use the Humane Society a lot, and also a nature center nearby. The bottom photo is actually from another Halloween program we did where the nature center brought creepy critters. And that was our most popular. We could not have fit one more person in that room. And yeah, these are great because they get something out of partnering with you. And remember that when you're done with a program, send a thank you note. One good turn deserves another. So Keep that in mind in the future. If you can volunteer at one of their events or repay the favor in some way, do that, and make sure you publicly recognize them on your social media, in the newspaper. Leave a positive review if it's a business. Help out. Collaboration is a two-way street, and good partnerships take a lot of work and nurturing. So outreach, how I get started is I try to think about where is my community, and then I go there. So this could be a local bar, a park, a swimming pool. Just go where the people are, and it really helps you get to know your community. So you could do, story times at an animal shelter, set up a booth at a Comic-Con or a farmer's market. A lot of bigger cities have done story times or like literacy centers at laundromats that have worked out really, really amazingly. My favorite tip for outreach is don't be afraid to be silly, especially at children's events. People can really pick up on vibes and energy. And if you're having a great time, they're going to have a great time too. Get out from behind your table. And it might be uncomfortable at first. I'm the biggest introvert, believe it or not. I'm the biggest introvert you will ever meet. And at first, when I started this job, I was so uncomfortable. And I just think if you fake it, you'll eventually start to feel it. And people like that. They can tell you're having fun. And then one of my favorite things that I've read about is the book Yak on a Kayak from Middletown, Connecticut. This was featured on ilovelibraries.org, I believe, pretty recently. It's just a book club on the water, but doesn't it look so like peaceful and relaxing? I just love it so much. And then I just think outreach is so important, and sometimes it's forgotten about because it really helps make non-users more aware of your services, and it's good PR. It can lead to a lot of potential partnership opportunities. And I just think it's important to meet people where they are. Not everybody can make it into your building. Summer reading. Oh God, I think that's what a lot of people think when they think about summer reading is, because it's it's so stressful, or it can be. And it is so important because it does prevent that summer slide. It does, draw in non-readers, increases interest in the library, and it's a programming extravaganza for kids and for families. So I do think it is important to do some sort of summer programming, but it doesn't have to be stressful. A lot of people burn out, especially youth librarians. A lot of them burn out when they are doing summer reading. So I think it's important that if it's not working for you, if it's too stressful for you, shake it up, rebrand it. If I had one kid come to me and say, summer reading program, and they said, I don't like to read. I don't want to come there and just read. And he didn't know, because the name is summer reading program. He just assumed he would come to the library and be forced to read a book. He didn't know it was more than that. So I've kind of stopped calling it summer reading. I just call it our summer program. Some people call it summer learning program, summer fun program. Just think about if rebranding would help draw more people in. Simplify. If tracking minutes read isn't working for you, you don't have to do that. If you don't like forcing kids to read in exchange for a plastic prize, you don't have to do that either. There's so much involved with summer reading that we don't have to be doing all of it. If you don't like the way something works, see if you can change it, simplify it, make it better. And watch out for, we've always done it this way. Well, just because you've always done it this way doesn't mean it's the right way, because times change, things change, we have to evolve. And I think for some of us, there's a lot of nostalgia involved in summer reading because, we did the same thing when we were kids. So it's like the warm and fuzzies. But we have to evolve and change because kids are different now from when I was a kid. So watch out for that. So what I do now, instead of tracking minutes, it just felt like kids were reading only to fill up their timesheet and only to get a t-shirt or whatever kind of prize. So we do these bingo sheets now. There are some reading options to check off, but a lot of it is not reading. Draw a picture, play outside, say hi to your neighbor, stuff like that. And kids, I've gotten good feedback from it for sure. And then prize alternatives. You can see the top photo, there's a prize wheel. That's what we use now, really, instead of giving out like the Oriental trading cheap prizes. So now the only physical prizes really that we give are food items of some sort, color changing pencils, and scratch and sniff bookmarks are really popular still. And those are, those are super cheap. Experience prizes have been really popular. These are things like helping the winner of this prize. They get to help you plan the next youth program or pick the topic of the next story time or whatever. We have also done a private movie night with 3 friends at the library, which has been really good. We pop popcorn, they watch a movie in the library, and they get to feel all special. But you can also do coupons or passes to local businesses. You can do books. You can just give bragging rights, like see if you can, those signs that say a star reader lives here, anything that makes a kid feel special. You know what I mean? So summer reading is just so much more than just earning free toys. I think reading should be the prize in itself. And so I think some things need to change. If they're not working for you, it's okay to change. So taking chances with programming. Man, I'm not going to be able to get to my last 2 slides, but that's okay. I have had a lot of programs fail, and that's okay. So I've had as many as 400 people in attendance at a program, but I've also had 0. And if you're a programming librarian, you're not all your programs are going to work, and that's fine. But one thing I do that has helped me is I keep a spreadsheet keeping track of all the programs that I've done, and then I can kind of see if there's a pattern, like, oh, programs in December typically don't have as great attendance. Maybe I'll do fewer programs in December. Or, oh, I never have any kids on Thursday night for the after school program. Why is that? And then you can kind of see if you should cut some days out, slow down some months, things like that. A lot of times conflicting events are an issue. There's so many reasons that your program could not work. And just because one program fails doesn't mean you failed, just the program did. And so I think it is important to not worry too much about that, and take risks, and stop thinking that just because you're a tiny library, you can't do what a big library can do. Stop thinking of your smallness as a lack of something, because you don't have to be a big library to have big programs. And some of the most amazing programs I've ever had have come about because I have taken a risk on something. So the Elizabeth Berg program and the carnival, I won't go into too much detail because, again, I've written blog posts on each of these. But the Elizabeth Berg thing was a big deal because I love her so much. I love her books. And we're a town of 250 people. So it was pretty cool to me that she wanted to come to my library. And it came because I sent a random email that I thought would be ignored and deleted. And then 5 minutes later, the phone rang, and it was her publicist wanting to set up a time to come to my library. So you never know what can happen if you ask, and you just have to ask. And the worst they can say is no. And then the carnival is a huge event for our town. It brings in double our population. And there's inflatables and a petting zoo and games and food. And I have been able to do it all on a relatively low budget because of the generosity of my community and because of donations. And it's just something that, it's like a signature event for us now. That's kind of one of the things people think of when they think of Meservey is the carnival. I will say, if you do a large scale program, and ask for help. Don't burn yourself out. Ask for as much help as you can get. And don't be afraid to ask people for discounts, because again, the worst they can say is no. I ask for a discount wherever I go, even if it's at like Target. I'll do it. So I am going to zoom through these. So fundraising, there are a lot of myths about asking for money, such as funders only care about numbers. That's not true. Your numbers are important, but that's not what will stick in your funders' minds. I have found that a story and like your passion is what sticks in funders' minds. If you can make them feel something, I think that makes them more likely to give to you. So of course, mention your numbers, but just saying, oh, our program attendance has increased by 30% this year, that's not going to mean a whole lot to them. But saying, oh, this kid that I've never heard him talk. He came and was doing a Lego program with other kids and he was such a chatterbox, something like that. Just an anecdote that makes them feel something that can go a long way. Another myth, only people who use the library donate. That's not true. Often a lot of the people who are willing and able to donate, they don't use the library at all. That doesn't mean they don't support it. They just don't use it. So I do think it's important to get out there, and you start with the city. I find that with the city, relationships are first and money is second. Attend city council meetings if you aren't already. Learn the names of your council members. Invite them to programs. Make them feel informed and involved in some way. I feel that can make all the difference. And city library relationships can be contentious sometimes. And I just think it's important to remember that you are a team. You're not supposed to be enemies, you're a team. And these are the people who decide how much they're going to fund your library. So I think it's important to keep that relationship positive if you can. Passive versus active fundraising. In my opinion, we should be doing both. So passive stuff is like year round for donation jars, selling your library merchandise, and active is having a signature fundraiser. For us, it's our baked potato bar fundraiser, talent show, fun run. You could do a pancake breakfast. We should be doing a little bit of both, I believe. And then tips for grant writing, prioritize your community over library. Talk about not only how the grant would improve your library, but how it would improve your community as a whole. They want to see that the project will make a difference outside of the library's walls. And be passionate. Make it clear that you care about this project, you think it's important. And then of course, follow up, send a thank you note, publicly recognize them, send them a Christmas card if you'd like. Do a donor appreciation event or a donor wall. Again, it's just important to nurture those relationships. And then finally, marketing. So it's tough in a small town because everybody knows who you are, and that can be a really great thing, but it can also be a hard thing. And so when I go out in my immediate community, eyes are on me because I'm the face of the library. And people know who I am. They associate me immediately with the library. And I just always have to be aware of my behavior. I always have to be kind of on, even if I'm off, if that makes sense. And that, yeah, it can be stressful. And I think it's particular to small towns, but that's always something I have to be aware of. Social media best practices, don't only promote yourself. I think the rule of thumb is 30% promotional on your library Facebook page, and then 70% should be engaging or promoting another community event or something else. And keep it positive on social media. Ignore the trolls, just delete their comments. Places and ways to advertise. I will just share a couple. I advertise in our water bill and our church bulletin. Those have been great. I also read about a library who advertised in a local restaurant, those pieces of paper that go on the lunch tray. They got on that. I thought that was so cool. And don't forget bathrooms. Advertise in bathrooms of local businesses if you're able, like inside the stall. People need something to read while they're going to the bathroom. And the Libraries Are for Everyone campaign from Rebecca McCorkindale and Gretna. I'm sure you've seen this. It's amazing. It's wonderful. But if you check out her blog, she's at hafuboti.com. She has the Libraries Are for Everyone campaign translated into all kinds of languages. And she has I wear a mask to protect my community graphic like this. And she's like the marketing queen. I love her so much. And then finally, I want to say you're doing amazing, sweetie. You're doing exactly enough. You're doing exactly what you should be doing. And I am proud of you. And I am so sorry. I'm sweating right now. My bangs are getting all sweaty. I'm so sorry. Anyways, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I love hearing from people.
Thanks, Chelsea. So we're at about time, but I did see one quick question that I think we can squeeze in. So you mentioned a library in Iowa that you follow. Could you say the name of that library?
It's the Altoona Public Library, Altoona, Iowa.
Altoona, and I believe they also did a webinar with us not that long ago that was Library After Dark Services for Adults. I'm butchering the name of that webinar, but we will send it to you after this webinar along with a copy of the chat and link to the resources and a link to the recording of the session. I just want to take a moment to thank Chelsea again for an excellent presentation, and be sure to check out her book, which will be provided in the list of resources for more ideas. I also want to thank my colleagues behind the scenes, Elena Pepe Selotric, who has been helping me out in the chat, as well as all of you for attending today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.